Morning, everyone. Welcome to Coffee Talk. Kevin, I have chosen this mug. This is a very intentional mug. I have never used this mug before. This might even be Jeff's mug, who's away this week. He's on holidays. I say away, meaning he's out of the office.
Yeah.
I think he's got like a long to-do list at home. He's getting some things done. Speaking of getting things done, you will definitely hear in the background just a little bit of work being done around this place this week. And so we thought, why not just bring you along for that ride too? And so, no, but I was saying about this mug, we talked on Sunday about routines, right? Mm-hmm. And the things we do and how we, make our routines Jesus-centered. And I thought this just spoke to me of routine. Coffee first, always. I don't know I share that sentiment, but coffee near the first.
Yeah,
I think is a really
close
good,
to the beginning.
It's got to be real quick.
I intentionally chose this mug as well too, because speaking of routines, this is my mug.
Your mug.
This is my mug.
Your
so
mug.
I don't share. This is my mug.
Hopefully Jeff's good to share his mug. I'm not about to text him on his days off and be like, hey Jeff, can I borrow your mug? I'm like, you leave it in the church kitchen. Anyways, hey, we do want to look back.
We clean it well.
Yeah, well, sure, we do our best. The point, of course, isn't the mugs or it isn't the coffee, but we do want to spend some time connecting and looking back on a morning of dedication.
Yeah.
I know it certainly brought up some conversation in our home about what it was like when our kids went through that.
Yeah.
Not in a bad way, but like we're part of that, right? Because all three of our children were dedicated here in Lakeview, and things have always been a little bit like there's no like this is the way it's always done kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But what kind of thoughts came out in your home after that?
Very, very similar to go back and think and realize, okay, so what are we doing? Yes, we're kind of saying, here's the baby, and it's a community celebration to say, God has brought something wonderful into our lives, but really, like we talked about, it's just as much, if not more so, about the faith of the family that is being taught, not just within these walls, but actually, as we go, like in our home, around our dinner table, in our van, at the sports field, all of these things, and all these times where we're actually going to be challenged to live out our faith in such a way that people know the love of God even before they speak to us.
Yeah.
And that's really, I think, the hope as well too.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I mean, we talked a little bit about verses and stuff. Like I loved that, each family or each couple had a verse for their child. And It was funny, on Monday night, we were looking at some of the prophetic works of Elijah and Elisha and Jesus, to which one of my children afterwards was like, oh, Dad, that was so boring. But whatever. We were talking about how Elisha at one point called bears out of the woods to maul some people who made fun of him. And someone was like, where is that in a baby dedication?
Yeah.
Like that would definitely be an interesting verse.
Yeah.
Definitely not one I would choose. Just, I don't know. Yeah, maybe not like, yes. It just seems weird to say.
There is those moments
spirit,
that it offers good imagination, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
We had some wonderful comments about, different parts of the service that were meaningful to others. And one thing that I think got a surprising reception in that I thought it was going to be kind of like a mediocre, okay, that was interesting, but for some it was a really significant thing, was the having people stand who had opportunity to influence lives of children in our church. And one of the things we called for in that is, if you had shared your story in a way that the children heard it, like stand up. And I wanted to say, like, really, I thought it was important that we kind of highlight the fact that one of the ways we do have incredible influence in children is just by sharing our stories, right? Our testimonies, as we sometimes say. And so I certainly have appreciated that we've sometimes had our children in the service when we've had those testimony videos, because, man, our kids will hear in different ways our story, and I think generally it probably leaks more than anything, right? I know I haven't sat my kids down and be like, let me tell you about how, because they would just be like, oh, Dad, but it comes out. But to actually have someone else who has been through very different life experiences than me, or very similar life experiences to me, to hear how God's been significant in them.
What's really cool as well is that even through some of the sharing in the service, that it's turned into let's share our story rather than let's put it all into the AGM where, okay, yes, members would hear it and that's great, but actually this has given us a lot of opportunity to share it with a larger community, which that's ministry and that's the gospel and that's all that. And what I think is important is when you get to know somebody and then you hear their story and you can actually in your mind say, you know what, that lines up, that checks out, right? Because could you imagine if the opposite was true? Because like, you know, you see their lives, you get to know them, and then you hear their story and you're like, that's not that person, right? So it's a really good confirmation for people to be able to say, yes, I actually affirm that what you're saying is true, and what you say is what you speak is what you live. And I think that's just a really important part of sharing our testimony, and that's kind of where, you know, I feel like you and Jeff kind of walked us through to be able to say, you know, it's about living out your faith and being consistent in your testimony and the way that you live as well. So this is kind of cool for me, even the other night at our life group. So we had a few new members come into our life group this year. So we've actually been taking a lot of this year to actually share our testimony. And so last night was actually my turn. And it just so happened because of schedules and all that, usually our kids don't come to our life group. Usually they stay home and, you know, the older ones take care of the younger ones. But it just so happened that Titus was there. Karis was in another room playing, and Titus was there. And so he sat in while I shared my testimony. And that was a really interesting experience to be able to see my testimony through his eyes, not just the people around the table. And hopefully, I haven't had a chance to debrief with him yet, but hopefully he was able to hear the same story that he, you know, that he sees in me is hopefully the same story that I was able to portray as well too. I also realized once I got to the end, you know, like, okay, I talked a lot about my faith, and I didn't, you know, mention, oh, we had a child here at this point, and we had a child at that point. I kind of glossed over some of that, but, you know, it's kind of
because
assumed.
you're going, Dad, was I significant?
Actually, in some ways, quite the opposite. Like, it was such significant moments that, you know, to go into that would actually be a whole nother thing too. Because I think parenting has been one of the greatest joys and challenges and journeys of trying to live out our faith and say, who am I when I'm in public and when I'm in private? Is that the same person? Because there's somebody there who is, you know.
Well, and it would be
because you get those kids into Sunday school, and then you start hearing all these stories of what happens at home, and
I hear beautiful things on a Sunday morning. You know, I do think it'd be terrifying, but also really interesting to have our kids tell our story. Right? And they do it in different ways, right? But like for them to go, you know, this is my parent. They leak it out. I actually think it'd be, you know, we have to talk to people about when you're preparing to share your story, right? Life before Jesus, the difference Jesus makes in life since, right? And you could almost swap Jesus for kids, right? My life before kids is this.
Actually.
You know, then this is, the kids came into the picture. This is how we became parents. This is what it's been like since.
And the grace of Jesus grows exponentially all the way along there.
There are certainly some passages of scripture I understand in a whole new light since having children, and that's okay. I don't want to like say if you don't have kids you can never understand all of scripture. It takes on a different meaning. That's all. But it's
and it does take a whole new meaning. Even when Jeff talked about Shema, right? Like, you know, God is saying, hear me out. And for him to even just use that little analogy of a young child who, that was me, Kevin, do you hear me, Kevin? Yeah. No, you didn't actually hear me, right? Like that really changes all that. And God is saying, not only do I want your attention, but I actually want that connection? Do you actually hear what I'm saying, and do you see and understand what I'm trying to portray? It's beautiful.
Absolutely. And so, it absolutely is a beautiful thing, and we all want to demonstrate, I think, for our kids what hearing God looks like. And so one of the ways we do that is just not keep it in secret. I think about how many times in my life I would get up early, just because I often have been an early riser, and I would see because my dad, all his working life, went to work really early, and the amount of times I would see him on the couch with his Bible in the morning, that made a mark, that left a mark in a really positive way and had a good impact. One of the reasons we're in the foyer this morning too is just to kind of mark a location where a lot of these kind of stories get shared in the little subtle, quick ways, right? And we just want to challenge you and encourage you, church, to be thinking through how have you shared your story this week, or whether the full thing and going from when I was born till here I am, or even just a little clips of this is where I've heard God recently.
Yeah, or even the amount of times where even just a simple, I remember this one time.
Yeah.
Right? You can share an amazing thing that God has done.
Yep.
Even in just a one quick memory as well too, right? It doesn't have to be sit down and hear my whole life story.
Right. Yeah, and those little moments of God awareness, right, where we're aware of what He's doing and appreciate it. All those are wonderful things to share. And this is also a place where we share a lot of cups of coffee over the years, not just on Coffee Talk, but in fellowship times. We do, looking ahead now, have a fellowship time coming up.
Yeah.
But it's soup-based. You want to fill us in on the details there?
So we purpose to kind of gather everybody about once a month to just share in a time together. And so the next one that we're planning is April 28th. We are planning on having a special guest speaker that morning, and so we are going to hear from them, and then the idea is to move then that time into a fellowship time of soup on a Sunday. And so if you're able to make a soup or you're able to help volunteer in the kitchen, we would really appreciate that. We would love some volunteers for that. And the hope is that it's not the people who did it last time, that it's a different group so that we can be serving one another. Now I realize some just love it, some have that gift. We're not going to stop you, but we're going to say we want to give that opportunity to some other people as well too. So if you're able and interested, please come talk to me in the next 2 weeks.
Excellent.
That'd be good.
Yeah, no, looking forward to that. They've been so fun. Even further ahead, Drama Camp is coming in August.
Yep.
August 12 is when it starts, but registration's open now, and it's filling up. So if you've got kids who, whether they love drama or just have a mild interest in it, or maybe if they're grade 6 to 9, they could be part of a tech team. So if they're I don't like being on stage, that's my son. He's the stage thing kind of is intimidating, but man, he loves to work behind the scenes. So if you got a kid like that, or a kid that loves to be center stage, check out our Drama Camp stuff and see if that's a week that works for you, and then get them registered really quickly. Because we would hate for that. Well, I mean, we love it that it fills up, but we just hate for someone to come along and be like, oh, we were thinking we needed time. And unfortunately, it goes pretty quick because there's only so many children we can accommodate in 1 week. So we'll put a link down below for information on that and how you can register. But it'd be great to get your kids in there for that. Anything else on the horizon that we need to be aware of this week?
One thing that's happening middle of April, and we're just kind of finalizing some details on it, but April 21st, we are going to hear from a choir that is sort of based in Summerland, but is not Summerland related. It's actually from people from all over the Okanagan, and they're going to be with us on Sunday morning, the 21st, and we're going to hear some of the songs that they've been doing and working on, and just some of their thoughts. And it's called Hope Road, and there's a couple people from our church that are a part of that choir as well too, and so we've invited them to come and share some music ministry that morning. So it's going to be pretty much a regular Sunday with a different kind of music.
All right.
Yep.
That sounds really fun. Looking forward to that. Well, the coffee's gone. The mugs are cold. But thanks for spending some time with us this week. And And we do want to leave you with that encouragement to not just track down a kid and sit them down and tell them your story, but look for ways that you can incorporate sharing your story into your daily, as you are going life. And that phrase, as you are going, I always think is so significant, because that's kind of like what's behind when Jesus tells his followers, right, go and make disciples. It's that as you are going, make disciples. And so we would just say, church, as you are going this week, share your story. Share of the goodness of God. And if you have children in your life, share it with them too. But also just one another. So when you're meeting over coffee or lunch, or, building a puzzle together, whatever you are doing as part of your routine this week, look for ways that you can just share the goodness of God with the people you are with. And we look forward to seeing you on Sunday for some of the events that we've shared, or just our regular times of worship together. We will see you soon.